start. I've got enough slides here for an hour, and I'm going to try and put them into 35 minutes. I thought I'd put a tie on so that you think, why is he wearing a tie, rather than, why is he fat? Okay, so better get going. Back in the 1990s, I developed the player types model, which I've been living off ever since. This is what it looks like, different 40 types of players, and it explains why people play MMOs for fun. I only ever say MMOs because that's all I can demonstrate, but it seems to work for other things as well, and address all the quadrants you get, long-lived game. But it's a bit insular because it tells you why people do play, but it doesn't tell you why they don't, which might be more useful. So today, I'm going to be talking about types of non-players, non-player types. And you're the first people I've said this to, so you can shoot me down afterwards. Well, you can't actually, because I'm going to run out of time, so there won't be any time, so I can say what I like. Here's an opera singer. Now, there's quite a few obvious reasons why somebody might not play a game. They may maybe heard of the game, so they're not going to play it then. Don't have the right hardware, don't have the time to play it, don't like it because, it's got elves. So there's lots of reasons that people might not play a game, but these are external reasons. So let's assume no such factors apply. Assume someone's actually playing a game, but then stops. Why would they stop playing? Well, here's some possibilities. They finished it. Better game came along. Maybe it was too easy. Maybe it was too hard. Maybe they couldn't just really get into it. Maybe it had some problems. So I'll look at these closer. So if someone stops playing because they finished it, well, that's fair enough. Likewise, if somebody stops playing because they dropped dead, well, they have an excuse. You can't really argue with that. If a better game comes along, well, this is going back to the external reason. Why is it a better game? It's a better game, probably. It could be because, oh, wow, it's got Peppa Pig in it. I love Peppa Pig. I'm going to play a game with Peppa Pig. Obviously not in Muslim countries. They might have another reason for it. And that's back to the original external factors, so won't cover that. Difficulty. If a game's too easy or too hard, it misses this sweet spot of challenge versus skill. So here's a graph. You often see this with flow, but then I'd have to put Chick Sent Me high up there, and that's really too many characters. But you've got a skill, how good you are at the game, or this kind of game, and the game gives you challenges. And if your skills are better than the challenges, the game's going to be too easy. But if your skills aren't up to the challenges, it's too hard. So there's this sweet spot in between where whatever your skill is, the game presents just enough challenge for you to want to play it. So if the game's either asking too much of you, or it's asking too little of you, then you're not really going to engage with it, because the balance won't be right for you. It might be for other people. Now, point 5 was being unable to engage with a game. And if you can't engage with a game, what that means is you can't enter the academic term incoming magic circle. You look at the game objectively. To play it, you really need to be looking at it subjectively, feeling it. But you start looking at it as an object rather than as a part of your environment, so you're not getting immersed. And basically the problem here is you don't understand it. It's not the same as when a game's too challenging or too complicated. That would be a difficulty thing. This is more of a, what is this game about? I don't know what these things mean. So it's that you can't work out. It's inaccessible to you. Here's an example of inaccessibility. The picture on the left is Lady Apart by Paul Klee, as I'm sure you're all aware. The picture on the right is Snoopy by Charles M. Schulz, which is a little more accessible. That's why Charles Schulz was the only living artist ever to have an exhibition in the Louvre in Paris, because people would come to see Charles Schulz, whereas people would not come to see Paul Klee. in fact, many people have not gone to see Porkley. Flaws. So if players feel a game has flaws, well, there can be two basic reasons for this. Firstly, maybe it's buggy. Maybe it really does have actual game-crashing flaws. So if you abandon playing that game, well, you can't really blame the player. You've spoiled it for them. And they can't get into a game which keeps removing itself from them. But if the game's bug-free, the player might keep seeing ways to improve it. Why won't they do this? Why can't I do that? Why isn't there a minimap? All these things the player will be thinking about as ways to improve it. And in this second case, they've engaged with the game so much, they've kind of gone through playing it and come out the other side as they're looking at it objectively again instead of subjectively. They've stopped to looking at it as something to experience and looking at it as an object again. So again, they're no longer fully engaged. Now, points 5 and 6 there are basically concerning the same thing. It's a bit tricky, this one. It's not as easy as the game's easy or hard. It's whether or not you understand what the game is saying to you. Point 5, the game is too deep for you to grasp what's saying. You're playing the game, and there's too much that you need to understand that you don't understand for you to be able to engage with the game. Point 6 says it's too shallow for what it says to be interesting. So you're playing the game and it's just telling you the same things over and over again. It might be easy, might be hard, but really, why am I playing this? What am I gaining from it? And as with the easy difficulty, there's a sweet spot where the depth of the game matches the player's insight. This time the player is asking the game for content, and the game is answering with either too much, by which I mean too dense, or too little, which is not dense enough. And we can draw another little graph. So they've got the player's insight at the bottom, and if the player wants to understand things and the game's not giving enough to work with, then the player's going to find it trivial. But if the player's trying to play the game and he's getting not too much information, but too much information they don't understand, then the game's too deep for them, and again, they won't be engaged. But there's this middle bit where it's just right. The player's playing the game and getting from it some... if I was speaking to an artistic audience, I'd say some art. And since you're game designers, you are an artistic audience, so some art. And that's just in the right place for them. Too much is too inaccessible, too little, it's trivial. So you won't participate unless the balance is right for you. Here's a picture of a rock, Spanish rock. If it was a British rock, it would have the word rock written all the way through it. So what we've got here is a dialogue. The game is asking the players to do something, and the player answers the game by doing it. But the player doesn't just do because there's a number of ways it can answer. It answers in a way which then asks the game another question. And the game answers by providing some more content. And then we go back to the beginning. So this is what people, when they talk about interaction in games, this is what they mean. The player is given something to do. In so doing it, the game is asking the game a different question, and the game returns with some more things to do, or more information, which the player can then act upon. And it's this cycle. And this can happen at multiple levels. At the lowest level, it's called a core loop. But in general, it's at a higher level where I'll be talking here. It's worth checking these concepts are orthogonal. Let's just say they are. Just a moment, we've got two axes here. That means we can draw a graph. I love graphs. So, in the middle of the graph, someone's actually playing the game. But if the game's too hard, you move too far to the right, they're not playing anymore. If it's too easy, they move too far to the left, they're not going to play anymore. If it's too lightweight, there's not enough intellectual meat there for them, then they'll stop playing. If it's too heavyweight, it's too strong, too meaningful, there's too much to think about, then again they'll stop playing. Now, how should we label those quadrants? Well, it's a bit dangerous because this is on a game-by-game basis. I mean, the player types, if you're an achiever for quite a long time, but in this non-player type stuff, it may be that you don't like this game because it's too shallow, but you don't like that game because it's too difficult. It's not like you only like these particular kinds of games. So it may be more useful to look at the grievances of the players. This is a demanding little baby. So the top right corner, so that's where a game is too hard or and too shallow. It means you know what the game's saying, it's pretty obvious what it wants you to do, but you can't do it. For me, a game like Pong or Space Invaders are like that. I know what Space Invaders is like. I mean, it's not like there's any hidden meanings or anything in Space Invaders or Pong, but for me, Pong is one of the world's hardest games. I regard Pong as a bullet hell. That's how bad I am at Pong. So it's an easy, simple game, but it's too hard for me. Anybody with any movement in their thumbs can beat me at Pong. A game that would be in that quadrant that's interesting, but you can't beat it because it's too hard, that would be near the x-axis. So for me, I'm playing the rewrite of the sequel to Master of Orion. It's got a different combat structure to the original game, and it looks really interesting, but I can't cope with it. It's too hard for me. I can't control things how I want to, and everything goes terrible, and I end up having to press the automatic battles. If it was a game that puts up a fight, but it's not too hard, but it hasn't got much depth to it, that would be closer to the central axis. So games like Tetris, they put up a fight, but I can play Tetris for quite a while. Candy Crush Saga, I can play that for as long as my brain holds out. So they've not got much depth to them. There isn't a great deal of, oh wow, this is really saying something about candies. The games, they're just tokens, they could be anything. But they do put up a fight, and now that's closer to the middle. So you might play it if you liked that particular kind of fight. So the bottom right quadrant, a game that's too hard and too deep will be full of unfathomable experiences, what the hell's going on, and you'll make snail-paced progress. So for me, EVE Online, well, clearly for the entire population, EVE Online would go there. StarCraft is one which lots of people play, lots of people understand. I was watching those the videos in the last talk last night, and things were happening, and I was thinking, this all makes sense if you know what those tokens mean. I don't know what those tokens mean, and I would have to be playing forever to understand what those tokens mean. Whether it's Dota 2 or StarCraft or anything like that, if you've played it for long enough, or this kind of game for long enough that you understand a single word, Zerg or something, you know what that means, but if you haven't played it for long enough, you know what it means at a symbolic level, but not at a semantic level. And so these kind of games, the ones that are too, they don't make sense, not because they don't ever make sense, they're not random, it's because they're too difficult for, not difficult, that's the wrong word, I'm putting up the wrong axis. They're too meaningful in particular ways for individuals to understand if they haven't followed the right path. So a game that seems to hang together, but you're useless at it, would be nearer the x-axis. So Undertale, which is a bullet hell game, but it's got a twee nice little story, I can't play that. I want to play it because I want to find out what happens. It does sound as though it's got some interesting message, but I can't play that because I can't get past one boss, and there's two of them. Castlevania, Assassin's Creed, these are other ones where the games have got story, they've got something underneath them, they've got substance, but I can't play them because I'm useless at them. A game you can play, but doesn't make much sense, is nearer the y-axis. So chess, I can play chess. A decent chess player would beat me, or indeed a random moving chess player would probably beat me, but I can play chess, but it doesn't really have much meaning to it. If you played an enormous amount, you might suddenly think, oh yes, that's a King's Indian defense, you use this attack to defeat it at a more high level, but basically I can play it, but it's not saying anything particular. Dota 2, I can play that, but I don't know what all those people mean, and when you hear commentators saying it's random name coming along doing random thing, those aren't random things to people in the know, but they are to me because I don't know. But on a practical level, I can actually play those. Civilization 6, that makes little sense, but I think that's by design. This is a zombie. This is what zombies looked like in 1968. That was scary in 1968, I think. Anyway, so the bottom left quadrant. A game that's easy, but too deep to comprehend, will seem capricious and inscrutable. So Elder Scrolls 4, Oblivion. That game was easy. And the reason it was easy is because it had dynamic difficulty adjustment, so whatever you did, it was easy. If you kept getting beaten, it would make itself easier, just so that you wouldn't get beaten. So you're always going to win it. But because of that, you were never getting to the stage where all the story was making sense. You were being told that the world is going to collapse if these things don't happen, and yet the enemies you were facing had been generated specifically so you'd be able... So they were meaningless. So it did have meaning, but it kept pushing it aside by giving you meaningless enemies. A game that would present lots of content but very little challenge would be near the x-axis. So something like Dear Esther or other walking simulators. Lots of content, but they're pretty easy to play. Maybe I'll click that button. Maybe I'll click it again. Slot machines, they've all got these complicated things and you pull the lever or press the button and so on. Lots of content, but they're not really all that challenging. You know that there's a machine in there that's figuring out that there's a 70% payout on this, and so you're going to get paid out or you're not. So they can give you the content, but there's no challenge to them. Other ones that have got actual goals, but they're coupled with opaque systems, these would be near the y-axis. So it's not hard to play Magic the Gathering. It's quite interesting building the decks and so on. But what's the game actually mean? I mean, is it constructing a world? What is that world about? Well, people are mainly in it for the collecting. Honorary, which is an abstract game where you're playing the game and you see everybody else's cards, but you don't see your own. That's an opaque system. You get the feeling that the designer could be saying something there, but maybe it's just a mechanic. Football Manager, another one. I've played years of Football Manager, and still don't have a clue how it works, but or what it even means. But whether it's trying to say you should play dirty or shouldn't play dirty, or should play as lower league or shouldn't, I don't know where it's saying that. I just play it because I'm actually quite good at it, but I've no idea why. So it's easy, but I don't really get it. The top left corner is the easiest one. This is a game with little meaning, few obstacles, and that'll become tedious and pointless over time. So cow clicker, just click enough times, you get a cow. Pay money, you can get a cow facing the other way. Noughts and crosses, or tic-tac-toe, if you don't speak English. Snakes and ladders, or something else as I don't speak Hindu. These are all games which are absolutely trivial. They may be fun if you're 5, but if you're older than 5, they're probably not going to be. So these are boring games, little substance. But if you get a bit more substance, they'll be more towards the, well, it's not trivial, it's a bit harder. So SimCity 2013 took out most of the content there. It was all done automatically, but there was still enough there to make it a bit harder, but it just didn't have any depth to it. Minecraft, as a game, doesn't have any depth. All the depth that goes into Minecraft is what players decide to use it as, and that makes it a toy. It's not a game there. And a game you fully understand, but it does offer resistance. That would be near the y-axis. So Rogue, yeah, I understand Rogue. I mean, because it's procedurally generated, there's not much to it, but it is actually quite fun to play because it's quite hard at times, and you know you're going to lose from the start. Monopoly, better not spit, there's a carpet. Risk, these are games I understand, but they do put up some resistance. There is some difficulty to them, so they'll be further to the right. So this is what the overall graph would look like for me. Let's just see. Oh, good. I'm racing through the slides. Oh, no, you can read it. Oh, my shame is available. The games which are really easy and no content to them, they're in the top left corner. Games which are really hard, like, and too much there for me to understand. So Dwarf Fortress, Wild Star was under there. Those are in the bottom right corner. The bottom left corner's got games which are, there's a lot more meaning to it than I understand, but the game itself's quite easy to play. So poker, well, the mechanics of poker are pretty easy. I could play poker until my money ran out, so probably 5-6 minutes. But if you're into poker, there's a lot more to it than that. And you'll be reading players and you'll be getting something from the game that I wouldn't be getting. You know, like if I was watching a movie with Steven Spielberg, not that I watch movies, but if I was sitting next to him, he'd see a different movie to me because he understands more about movies. I don't. So I might take it on as a consumer thing, and he's thinking, should never have made that jump cut. Of course, your games will look different to that because you've got better skills, more insight, or they lie in different areas, so your game will change, your map will change, so will mine after a while. So players will leave games that are in the top right-hand corner, they're too meaningless, full of unnecessary obstacles, like a rock. It's meaningless, and it's an obstacle. The bottom right they will leave because the game's inarticulating and it's making frustrating demands. Well, babies are inarticulate and make frustrating demands. Basically 3. Input, output, reboot. Eating, filling a nappy, and sleeping. Bottom left corner, that's a game it's fairly straightforward, but it's got layers of pretentious nonsense to it, which is like opera. I heard some people sucking in there. They like opera. It's awful. The top left-hand corner is games that are vacuous. You do vacuous things for vacuous reasons, so it's pretty like zombies. Utterly mindless, but kind of frightening. Actually, that's my students. Oh. So, Easy Recall, Rock Babes, and Opera Zombies. Now, the pull of each axis is actually quite strong. I mean, I drew that as a circle with lines coming out of it. But people may put up with unsuitable gameplay if it's particularly meaningful, and they may put up with difficult gameplay, meaningless games if they like the challenge. So the graph could therefore look more like this. So it's not a circle in the middle. It's if a game's got exactly the right challenge for you and doesn't have much meaning to it, you'll still play that for quite a while because you like the challenge. Similarly, if a game's got a really good story that seems to be saying something to you, speaking to your heart, then you'll keep playing it even though you're wearing out your thumb clicking. Sorry, I'm just having flashbacks to the secret world here. Clicking buttons the whole time. Now, in my original player types paper, which none of you've read, it was written by monks, it's very old. I extrapolated the player types. So I said, what would happen if you moved too far in one of the directions? So if, say you want acting on the world, that's something that achievers like to do. But if you act on the world, if you push too much in those directions, you push too much in the world or in too much in the action direction, you end up with something that isn't an MMO. So the players with that particular orientation would still like it, but it wouldn't be an MMO. And the other players would stop playing because all the cohesion would be lost, so they wouldn't play, but you'd still have a game that might appeal to achievers in MMO terms. So this is what it kind of looked like. So the square in the middle is the actual player types grid that pays my bread and butter. And the ones too far, this is, well, if you look down here, if you're a socializer, you like interacting with players, but if you push too far in the interacting with players line, you end up with a chat room, which will still please someone with a socializer kind of bent to them, but it wouldn't please killers, achievers, or explorers. Killers might like it because you can be a dick wherever, but... so the focus changes from players in the middle to what they would play on the outside. Instead, if they weren't playing an MMO, they would change to this. So these here are people, these here are the types of games, so it's a different category. Now, that was an extrapolation thing. With the non-player types, we've got the ones on the outside, so can we interpolate to see what the ones inside that circle or square or whatever it is are? And this will change the focus to the players from the games that they don't, or the reasons they don't play. And it turns out that we already know what these player type names are because we've got established names in the industry. And this is pretty well it. Casual, core, hardcore, and Care Bear. So hardcore people like hard and meaningful games, but if it's too hard or too heavyweight, then they're dealing with something that's frustrating and unfathomable, like a baby. Core players, they like something that's hard but not too deep. If it's completely shallow, has no meaning, and it's just an obstacle, then they'd be in the top right-hand corner. Likewise, casual gamers like easy, lightweight games, but they don't want games which are too easy or too lightweight. And Care Bears are the ones who like a game that has meaning and story, and they'll play it through, but they don't want it to be too hard. And if it's one or the other, then, well, that's when they can go off and satisfy their need for cultural inculcation by going to the opera. I'm already regretting those quadrant names. I really should have come up with better names. The reason I haven't is if this ever does take off, other people will have to change the names. And that means other people will have to publish papers on this saying, these are stupid names, these are the names you should use. So it's my way of planting a seed for someone else to do all this. I just say it, other people can do the actual work. Skip this slide. Yeah, okay. So this is all well and good, but is it actually any use? I've got 5 minutes, so... well, this is at the point at which academics start using words like it's a lens, it's a framework. In other words, I don't know if it's any use. So I'm just going to say I don't know if this is any use. But we could try it out. So let's see if we can use it to say something about the free-to-play revenue model, because that's low-hanging fruit, and since I've just grown the tree, I may as well pick the lowest hanging fruit. So some basic rules. Players aren't going to pay to make a game more challenging, because they can make a game more challenging on their own. Like, if you want to make World of Warcraft more challenging, then try playing it without any armor, for example. So you can make a game more challenging yourself by adding extra rules. So no one's going to pay to make a game more challenging. But they might pay to make a game less challenging if they like easier games. Players might pay to make a game more accessible if they like deep games. So if if they like what the game's about but they don't really get it, then they will pay to be enlightened. But they won't pay to make a game less accessible, because that's like patronizing them. If I understand this game, why would I pay to make it less understandable? Do you think I'm an idiot? Well, we do, but we don't want you to think that. So if we look at these basic rules, then we can apply them. And what this says is that Care Bear gamers will pay to remove challenges, or they'll pay for richer content. So they'll pay for the expansion, and they'll also pay to overcome a challenge that something's taking too long or something. They'll pay to get past that. Hardcore gamers will pay for richer content. So if you've got a game that's hardcore, then people will pay. This is downloadable content. People will pay for richer content because they like the challenges, and they like the meaning of the game, what the game's about. Casual gamers will pay to remove challenges. So this is why successful casual games occasionally have something which is an unusually difficult level, which people will then pay to overcome. And then, having identified them, then as a payer, they'll just get shafted every single time, but they don't know that. Core gamers won't pay for anything. So if you're making a game for core gamers, then you're not going to be doing much business with microtransactions, because they won't pay for anything that you're able to give them. So what this means is that free-to-play is risky for games that appeal to those who like games that are quite tricky, quite hard, but they're shallow. They don't have a lot of substance or meaning to them. And that seems to make sense. People who are core gamers rather than hardcore gamers, they'll go and buy the latest 3D, AAA blockbuster, but they're not going to be paying anything else to just wait for the next AAA blockbuster to play that. So, I've raced through these because John Never Die was John Never Shut Up. If we look at what stops players from playing, we can explain it in a formal manner using some concepts that we already knew. And we can apply that resulting theory, but I don't know if it's any use. It adds weight to the existing models that we have, but whether it's useful or not, well, the dialogue thing, that could actually help academics. I think I might teach my students that. That's the sort of thing where that will impress them. And finally, I expect to be shot down in flames now. So that's my talk.